we'll take a look at the private travel issue, which relates to my own personal experience. Okay, there's a lot of guys talking about that, but I don't know how many actually have personal experience. And so I'm sure you're going to walk away from this learning a few little tidbits, which is very important. It's not just storytelling. I want it to be educational as well. So here we go. Back in the day, I bought this Pontiac Trans Van, and really nice car. It was used and very comfortable, very functional. Really liked this car. It was a super car to have. But I bought it with cash, $5,000 cash. The guy gave me the certificate of title, the keys, off I went. It was my car. All right, so now let's go have a little fun with that. So I had the certificate of title. What is a certificate of title? All right. From Black's Law Dictionary, this is a document evidencing ownership. That's how most of us see it as and commonly associate it with. But it says, see also insurance, title insurance. Isn't that interesting? And really, when you think about it, the essence of a certificate of title is such that it's nothing more, nothing less than a commercial contract for title insurance for the state. You're paying the state to protect the title of your car, which of course you never get. A certificate of title is not the title. And I think most of you understand that already. So we won't get into that. But a certificate of anything only is evidence of something else that exists. Okay. So title insurance. Yeah, the state's being paid a fee to help you protect the title on your car. And it's an insurance contract, in essence. That's the function of it. So that's interesting, isn't it? Okay. And again, don't forget, if you haven't heard this before, a certificate is only evidence that a title exists somewhere else. So where's the title? And if you want the answer to that, make a note. I'll tell you at the end. So I began looking into the laws. I was living in Oklahoma at the time, actually 2 blocks away from the Murrah building, which Timothy McVeigh was accused of bombing and going through that whole routine. Don't get me started on that. But here it says, any vehicle within this state owned by a non-resident, which is not properly registered in its native state for the current year, shall be registered under the same terms and conditions as such domestic vehicles are required to be registered. Okay, so residency plays a part. All right. They're looking for it to be registered either in Oklahoma or its native state and being registered under the same terms and conditions as domestic vehicles. And those terms and conditions are that you are a resident of the state and are operating the vehicle within the state, owning it within the state. Okay. And again,
Hey, Mark,
yeah.
Mark, forgive the interruption. What is the full site of this law, if you don't mind? What's the code site? Because generally speaking, most states will have similar code structures, and I'd like to research this when we're done.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Oh, is it not on that? It's not on the piece here? Okay. I'm sorry for
No,
the interrupt.
yeah. It's easy to find though. Registration requirements, automobile registration requirements, look it up in the statutes. That's what I did, or just do a Google, you'll find it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, so we learned a couple things here that if it's not registered in its native state, it needs to be registered in Oklahoma. A vehicle within the state. What does that mean? We can get into that, but we'll save that for another time. Here's what Alabama says. I just picked a couple states at random, right? So no reason I picked Alabama, just a random check to see what do they say there. Okay, so if an Alabama license has not yet been obtained, he must provide valid out-of-state license and proof of residency. Okay, so I that raises the question, if you're with us for a while, we have to study the words. Okay, so what do they mean by valid? What's considered valid? What's considered out of state? I know it's easy to make assumptions and presumptions, but does that include only the other 49 states, or does that include something else? Or I saw a video of a guy from Dubai, a rich guy. He brought his very expensive car, Lamborghini, I think it was, and he was racing down the highways of Wyoming. He always gets pulled over, so he always has his papers with him. Says, "No, this is my car. It's private. I imported it. I've got 90 days to use it without registration." And he knew all the laws, and the cops always let him go. But when you're in Montana, seeing a Lamborghini head down the highway at about 110 miles an hour kind of raises your eyebrows. So I'm sure the guy was he was used to getting pulled over, so he knew the routine. So key points here. Okay, valid out-of-state license, proof of residency. Okay, well, that residency seems to pop up quite a bit, doesn't it? So in Colorado, new Colorado residents are required to register a vehicle. Who? New residents within 90 days of establishing residency. Vehicles must be registered in the county that you reside. Wow, that residency is really important, isn't it? So that's really the key element is residency. Residency and valid driver's license. Okay, either from the state or a valid out-of-state license. Okay, whatever that might be. So as it relates to residency, you've probably seen me in other videos talking about this. This is just a sample ID document that we use in the Kingdom of Heaven, the Embassy of Heaven, which establishes me as a private ministerial ambassador. So that's my function and my activity. Okay, private ministerial, working with World Mission Church. As you can see from the data that's on here, what does a document number relate to? Well, that's a number that can be looked up on the database exchange for Kingdom of Heaven, and that can be looked up online. So it can be verified. All right. So it's authenticated and verified by an online database issued by the Kingdom of Heaven. All right. So back to that residency issue, that's kind of a stickler. You have to be, if you're a resident, you got all kinds of requirements. So as a private ministerial ambassador, my resident status is that as a sojourner at large. I don't have a residence. Never had a permanent residence. They ask you, well, where's your residence? Well, you mean like a permanent residence? And I scratch my head. I go, I've never had a permanent residence. And if you think about it, you never did either. Wherever you lived before, you moved. And if you're going to live the rest of your life in your current house, you're not going to stay there forever. So there is no such thing as permanent residency. But getting to the point, Scripture tells us to have dominion over the earth, go out and spread the good news. And that's my job as a private ministerial ambassador working for the Kingdom of Heaven. This is not a gimmick. It's not a game. This is the essence of my heart and soul. This is the purpose of my creation. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. And don't anybody try to challenge that, because nobody has the authority to challenge my personal religious beliefs. And that is as well established in law as anything is. Okay. So I'm a sojourner at large. I don't have a permanent residence. And you may have heard me tell the story of standing in front of a judge one time in court, and she was trying to pin me down to get jurisdiction. It was so funny. She was trying to get my residence, oh, Mark, what's your address? And I said, well, you mean like a permanent address? Yeah, yeah. No, I don't have a permanent address, never did. Well, where do you set up your housekeeping? And I said, well, I'm basically a sojourner and I set up my housekeeping wherever I can hang my hat for the night. And she said, well, where do you live? And she's probing at me, trying to figure out different ways of getting the answer she wants so she can get jurisdiction. She says, well, where do you live? He says, well, I look around a little bit, scratch my head. I said, I'm living now. And now I'm here. So I must be living here. No truer words were ever spoken. All right. Sounds silly, but you can't argue with the truth, can you? All right. And she had enough of me. She says, bailiff, get him out of here. I was making a bad example for all the people that were waiting to have their cases called. So that was fun. So you see the importance of resident status. Okay. Date of birth, not here. What's important is the date you were entered into the kingdom of heaven, baptized, entered into the church, born again, basically accepted into the kingdom. That's the date that's important. When the body was born is not important. So all of a sudden, your data points are not matching up with what's in state databases, if you're still in the state databases. And so you can see how this can have certain advantages. Okay. So resident status is the key point there. So I have this certificate of title. Yeah.
Can you go over that sojourn and at large just a little bit further explanation? I mean, sojourner is, I just looked it up, temporary stay, but what's the at large part of that for?
It means you have no defined boundaries.
Okay, all right. And you use this as like an ID for traveling around the world, so to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Continue.
All right. And it brings up some interesting discussions because, the minions of Babylon, they're used to exerting authority and assuming power over people. And when you have answers for their questions that don't fit into their mold, they can tend to get frustrated. Sometimes they're very intrigued. They go, wow, I see what you're doing here. It's pretty neat, depending on who they are, what their perspective is. However, the state of the world as it is today, you're not going to find a majority of people that think that way. Most of the world is godless. They don't believe in God, or if they do, they don't, the power of the state trumps everything. So you have some interesting conversations. All right. So to the certificate of title. So I had this certificate of title, and understanding that it's little more than an insurance contract, I figured, I don't need this insurance contract anymore. It's registered to the state. That really means that the state owns it. So I don't want to deal with that. What the state owns or creates, it can control, right? So we don't want any of that. At least I didn't. So what does it say on the bottom? Void if altered. All right. So I alter it with a big black magic marker, just in the way that you see it. Then I flipped it over on the back in much the same manner. I wrote canceled. All right. And I sent it in to the Department of Motor Vehicles with a cover letter, basically stating this vehicle is no longer engaged in commerce. I'm not interested in your title insurance. I wish that you cancel the certificate of title and take me out of the databases. Okay. And I did find out that once upon request and the non-payment of further fees, that they would take you out of the database after 2 years. And that used to seem like a long time to me, but as I get older, 2 years seems like about 2 weeks anymore. So time flies fast. So I canceled the certificate of title. And unregistered the vehicle with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Okay. So with the understanding of the residency issue and the fact that this vehicle was no longer engaged in a commercial activity, I wanted to get it in writing from the Oklahoma Tax Commission, which is the body that handles the registration. Because, as you probably are well aware, all fees are essentially a tax. Okay, everything's a tax. All right. So in Oklahoma, the tax commission handles all the registration issues. So I sent them a letter to prompt a response, which I knew they would give me if they were kind enough to give me a written response. And that was what I was looking for. Now, this actual letter isn't the actual letter that I use. It's just a facsimile to represent what I got back from them. So I sent them a letter saying, hey, this vehicle is no longer used in commerce. It's owned by the church for private ministerial activities. I'm non-resident to the state, but I spend a lot of time in Oklahoma, and I'm concerned that should I ever have, a traffic stop, that I might have some headaches with the local law enforcement if this isn't registered. So I said, I'd like you to tell me how a non-commercial vehicle that doesn't permanently reside in the state and is operated by a private non-resident individual engaged in ministerial activities, please tell me how to register it under those conditions. So I was automatically disqualifying myself, anticipating, what the answer should be. And lo and behold, they sent me a really nice letter saying, sorry, but you're not eligible to register this vehicle. And I thought, well, perfect. Because now when I'm traveling under my Kingdom of Heaven plates, should I ever have any pushback on that from local law enforcement, I've got my letter from the state of Oklahoma showing that I tried in good faith to register, but they denied me. So, Mr. Boswell, you've been charged with driving without a license and driving an unregistered vehicle. How do you plead? I plead not guilty. I've acted in good faith. Here's a letter confirming that I tried to register and I was denied that opportunity. And the law cannot punish me for failing to do the impossible. And I walked out of there. All right. So that came in awful handy, but not just for that. For another situation that was even more daunting, which I'll get to in a minute. But let's move on for now. So I had new registration from the Kingdom of Heaven, and you can register your vehicles now with the Kingdom of Heaven. You can get driver's license, you can get passports, you can register personal documents, birth records, marriage documents, anything that you want to be public. They have a registration system, and I'm working on getting one of our own because I'm taking their concept and I'm adding to it in a number of ways to make it that much stronger. As you will see if you go through any of the other videos on our new YouTube channel. Okay, I'm not going to get into all that now. But so I have new registration from the Kingdom of Heaven. So, Mark, is your car registered? Well, yeah, actually it is. It's not registered to the state, it's registered to the church. And the same thing with the driver's license. One thing Pastor Paul Revere found is that by presenting his own driver's license, he would often get into an argument where officialdom would say, well, this is fake and fraudulent, and you're dealing with fraudulent documents. So he stopped using the driver's license, when police would ask him on the roadside, and he'd just give them his passport. All right. In fact, one of our members had a traffic stop on the road. And when he was asked for his driver's license, he presented his USA passport instead of a driver's license. And what does the passport say inside? This person is an American citizen and shall be unhindered and given free passage. The cop gave him his passport back, says, "Thank you very much. Have a good day." So there's something to that. So the kingdom of heaven, they do have their own passport, and I had one as well, and worked very well. Now at the time, I had plates like this. Very simple, straightforward. And what I did was I put a plastic protective cover over the plate, so it wasn't quite so obvious. I mean, sure, you could still see it, but if there was a reflection or getting kind of dirty or whatever, it was a smoky color, right? So it wasn't totally clear plastic. So I thought, well, that might just help me out, be not so obvious if someone's right behind me. Now, at the time, I lived in downtown Oklahoma City, as I said, and 2 blocks to the left of me was the city police department. 2 blocks to the right was the county sheriff's office. And so whenever I pulled off the highway and started towards my apartment, there was almost always official cars behind me, almost always. And I would be sitting there at a red light, just praying, "God, make me invisible, make me invisible. I don't have time to get pulled over right now. I got things to do." Make me invisible. And he did. I never got pulled over, for that at all. Now that's the old style. I'm going a step further. I've created a new design for our kingdom ambassadors, which I think will carry a lot more weight. And this is it. So it identifies the vehicle or the person inside the vehicle as a ministerial ambassador. What does that say? One, you're a minister, all right? That immediately gives you privileges and immunities, separation of church and state, right? And an ambassador, there's a long list of constitutions and international treaties providing diplomatic immunity. And we actually are, if you understand the scripture and what your purposes and intent are on this earth, you are a veritable ambassador for the kingdom of heaven, okay, if you're living your life according to scripture. Okay, so we represent the kingdom of heaven. The plate is numbered and registered in the public database, can be looked up online. We make it known that, hey, this is private property. This is not state property. It's not registered to the state. This is private. That in itself brings with it all kinds of immunities. All right. We indicate where it's registered at. You can go online at worldmissions.world. We don't have that set up yet, but this is a placeholder design. And essentially, it's owned by a trust, which is the World Mission Church. Okay. So we used to have a lot of fun in the law club in Denver that I started years ago. Guys would set up a trust in a funky name and register their car in that trust, So the trust might be named Independence Research Society, aka IRS. Or they'll come up with some other acronym, FBI, the Financial Bureau of, pick a word, starts with I. I can't think of one. But anyway, and so the police would look at the registration document. It was actually registered to the state in the name of the trust. They go, "Oh, you're with the FBI? Oh, okay." And so that put a whole new slant on the approach by the police officer. So we had a lot of fun with that. All right. So here was the biggest success that I had doing this. And that was my car got stolen. I'll go back. So my car got stolen. Guy broke into my apartment while I was sleeping, found the keys with a bunch of other stuff he took, and went out the front door. I heard the door close from my bedroom, so I got up to see what was going on, and I just saw him running out the door. I chased him down the stairs, and before I knew it, all I could see was the taillights of my car going down the street. And away it went. Okay. At the time, I had an RV and I was about ready to take off on a trip. So I reported the car stolen. There was a police report, and I took off on my trip. I had my mail forwarded to me wherever I was, sent by FedEx in a package every week or so. And one mail package I got, there was a letter from an apartment complex. The car had been abandoned there and left, and the apartment management got into the car and they were able to find my address with some papers that were in the glove box. So they sent me a letter saying, hey, we're charging you so much for storage of your car, and if you don't come and get it by a certain date, we're going to auction it off. And so I was miles away in another state. So I told the police, hey, you got this police report. Here's the car. Go get it. So they went and got it, put it in the police impound lot. So when I got back from my trip, I went to get the car. And they go, oops, you're not able to get the car unless you register it to the state. We can't let any cars out of here that aren't registered to the state. So I actually had forgotten about the letter I had with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. And so I made a couple trips to talk to the people there, hoping that I might catch some guy on duty that might be more sympathetic to my cause. So I made several trips back trying to get my car out. And then I remembered, hey, I've got this letter from the Oklahoma Tax Commission. And so I went down there and I said, hey, you can't force me to get registration. I've already tried and the state won't let me. And the guy I was talking to, by that time, he was getting a little bit tired of dealing with me because I was pestering him on numerous occasions and really kind of pushing him hard. He was probably getting a little bit annoyed, kind of like the judge in the Bible that was annoyed by that woman that kept pestering him, and he finally gave in. Same exact scenario. And long story short, eventually they gave me back the car, totally unregistered, no plates, not registered to the state. They gave me the keys. I said, here, go get it, get out of here. It probably helped that being in Oklahoma, they're pretty much in the Bible Belt, so they might have had some sympathy towards the church. I don't know. But that letter from the Oklahoma Tax Commission was the key. So being forewarned is forearmed, right? So you got to think ahead. You got to think what are you going to need if you're in a certain situation, and prepare for it in advance. And so that letter saved me my car, basically. So I got out of there. Again, no registration. Now, what was interesting is the thief who stole the car, he apparently liked the Kingdom of Heaven plates. Because he took those with him. And he also took my Kingdom of Heaven passport that was in the glove box. So he thought that was probably more valuable than the car. So he took those with him. So I had to get those replaced. But interesting stuff. So it works. Travel free, travel safe, travel under God's protection. Come out of her, my people.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
One question. So that means that you would probably be exempt from paying any kind of tolls and bridges as well, right?
That's a good point, because I know you got those in New York, huh?
Many. We have
Yeah.
plenty.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you would do that because these days that's so automated. What you might do is go to the central administration office for the company that manages the tolls and take your case up with them. and they get some kind of electronic pass that would allow you to go through, because the state doesn't, they can't tax churches. However, these days, many of those public utilities are owned by private companies now, so that might be a different story. But it'd be worth a visit and go and talk to them and say, hey, here's who I am. This is the car. I need to be exempt. We're pushing the envelope, and we're spreading the good word in the process. We're taking the word of the Lord to the world and saying, hey, your stuff doesn't apply to us. We answer to a higher authority. My boss is over your boss, right? And when push comes to shove, most everyone understands the concept of separation of church and state. There are other videos where I go into the authorities and the protections. You ought to look into those. But I would invite you, if you're not already on our email list, you can go to the homepage of worldmissions.world, scroll to the bottom. There's a big box that says opt in to learn more. And that's our email list, doesn't cost anything. And then I'm putting more educational videos on these type of topics on our new YouTube channel, which is Kingdom Ambassadors. And you can just go to YouTube and put this in, and it'll bring you to it. So that's that.
I
Thoughts or
I want
comments?
to jump in for a second. I put
Yeah.
something in there where you can purchase these clear adhesive things that go over your plates, and it's like exactly to the number. And when they take a picture, it's clear, like it's faded. You can't see what it is. So she might be able to use that. I just wanted to let everybody know I did post that in the chat.
Yeah, I've seen that. It makes your plate invisible to cameras.
Yeah.
That's some kind of a film. I've also heard that in some states that's illegal. So, but that's only illegal for state citizens and state residents. So you have to understand, you're dealing in a different realm, a different jurisdiction, and state rules really don't apply to you unless you really hurt somebody bad, violate their rights. It's a whole different world, but you have to really live it. You can't just get a couple documents and say I'm good. I mean, you really have to internalize. If you go to our website, worldmissions.world, the first thing you do is you go and find the creed. That's our constitution. That's our statement of beliefs, right? And so to be a member of the church, you've got to start out there and be fully behind our creed and our belief system, all right? If not, then I'm sorry, it's not a fit. And so we're going to be going through a number of trainings for folks to be able to stand on truth, law, and righteousness as an ambassador for the kingdom of heaven. And no one shall get in your way. They will try. And so you have to be able to stand your ground. So it's not something you just walk around with a gimmick card in your wallet or purse. It's a way of life and a way of living. So it's a commitment. But I think you can see it works. And there are so many other examples. I'm going to be posting some recordings of Pastor Paul Revere and some of their experiences going back and forth over the border to Mexico. Mexico is fine with the Kingdom of Heaven passport. United States Border Patrol, not so much, but they're learning. They're learning, okay? And what a great opportunity to bring testimony, and have a serious talk with these people and let them know, the power and the glory of the Lord. And whatever they do to us, it's only going to be short-lived because the truth always prevails. So go to see the other videos on our YouTube channel, The Authority and the Kingdom, and there's several of them that really get into some interesting aspects of this. which I didn't do tonight. So, what are your thoughts? Am I crazy or what?
You're awesome and blessed.
Well, the Babylonians will call me crazy. You're a wacko. This stuff is crazy. What do you think you are? You're above the law. No, the law is above me. But I operate according to a different law, a higher law, a more valid law, a more loving law. And isn't that where everyone should be, right? So it's a big deal. It really is. It's really a big deal. So I invite you to join us. It's an educational process and doesn't happen overnight. You know, we take it step by step. So if you would go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that'll be a good source of education for you. Get on our mailing list on the website, and we'll keep you posted of events. We have prayer sessions every Saturday morning, Sabbath. And we get into all kinds of different topics on the website. We've got some really important sessions that we posted on our blog page, spiritual empowerment, sharpening your sword with the word, just increasing your power and authority in the spiritual realm. Really important stuff. So I encourage you to go there and spend a little bit of time as well. So, sorry, I got a little something going in my eye. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Edward has a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. What I envision is bringing like-minded people into the fold. Number one, we have to build out our various ministries within the embassy. We have a ministry of health. We have a ministry of justice. We have a foreign ministry. Some other videos go into detail on that. And we're looking for volunteers. Share that with you if you'd like to volunteer and help us out, help us build this. We're in the building process, right? So we're looking for people that can man some of these ministries and help us build it out and provide the services that we need. Okay. So as far as being a ministry associated with us, what I envision is bringing ambassadors through a training program whereby you would be considered an ambassador. You'd be given credentials. Again, we get into that in other videos. And we'd have a placard actually posted on your property, which we would then also provide public notice that this is embassy property protected by international treaty. Okay. And no matter what you do, you might be a machinist, you know, cranking out steel machine parts. And that's your ministry because you're working to support yourself and by participating in the church to help support others in some way, shape, or form. Whether it be financial, it might be sharing education, it might be bringing people into the church, spreading the good news. There's so many different ways that you are actually working. Everything you do in your life is working for the ministry. You do not have to be an ordained pastor or considered a professional minister, okay? So as such, you're working on behalf of the church as an auxiliary for the embassy. And we can put a placard on your property. And there's ways of taking the property out of the state taxation system as well. That's a whole nother area that we need to get into. And pull that property out of the county recorder's and tax assessor's office and make it private property, not real estate. And that legal distinction has a huge impact so that it's no longer taxed, right? So there's so much that we can do with this based on the law. The law is there. All right, we just need to do it. So I'm leading the way. I'm looking for people to help out. I just posted the link to our volunteer form. Encourage you if you like this idea and if you think you can live accordingly. I mean, you need to have the internal fortitude to really share our belief system. And I know many people don't, and you know, that's okay. We love you anyway. But this is where the power is. This is where the authority is. All right, well, I'll leave you with that. So take care, everybody. God bless. Have a good evening, and I hope to see you next week.
Good night.